Are you a small firm lawyer? Do you work hard on business development, accounts receivable, and accounts payable, managing your team, all while just trying to help your clients with their critical issues? Well, one thing we hear from many of the law firms that reach out to us every day is that they do all this work, and at the end of it, there seems to be little room left for a good salary and some business profit. Well, today on GNGF Live, we're talking with Moshe Amsel, owner of the successful accounting firm Dreambuilder Financial and host of the podcast Profit with Law. Moshe has proven that there are better and different ways for a law firm to do business, help their clients, and grow their profits. So welcome to GNGF Live. This is your bi-weekly Ask the Experts about all things law firm marketing and business growth. I'm Mark Homer, author of Online Law Practice Strategies and founder of Get Noticed, Get Found. As always, please be sure to like and subscribe our page, not just the video, so you can get updated when our next episode goes live. And of course, we have moderators on the chat, so please ask questions and interact while we're live. And if you're watching this in the future, after we're live, we do monitor the comments on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and we'll work to reach out to our guests to answer any follow-up questions you have. That's because we love you all, and we love getting to meet you in person. So come see us. Here's where we're going to be next. On December 6th, I'm going to be speaking at the CLE at the Omaha Bar Association. And during the week of December 15th through 20th, we'll talk about this in a second, but I'm going to be speaking at the Law Firm Growth Virtual Summit, which was actually started by our guest today, Moshe Amsel. You can join thousands of small and solo law firms from across the country on a web-based summit, so no need to travel, and you can jump in and out on the topics that matter to you. Joe, can we get a link to that in the chat? And finally, GNGF is proud to be joining 4 other legal marketing agencies to put on the second Best Damn Legal Marketing Conference, or Bedlam 2020. This year it's going to be in Las Vegas, April 1st through 3rd. And depending on when you're watching this, early bird pricing might still be available. So use the code EARLYBIRD2020 and you can save $200. If you aren't following our page, you may not have noticed we started a new video series we call GNGF Tips. Check it out on our YouTube page. Joe, do you have a link to the first video that we have? Awesome. So we drop a new video every other Friday. So now let's get to our interview today. I'd like to welcome Moshe Amsel to GNGF Live. Moshe, thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. It's great seeing you out in San Diego at the Clio conference. Had some good conversations there. But tell me, how did you get started working with law firms?
So it's an interesting story, but essentially I started an accounting practice to help people with creating generational wealth. My grandfather came over from Nazi Germany with basically, he was 11 years old with his father, and the rest of their family perished over there. And they started a business, and through that business created some wealth, which impacted myself and my children. Because he gave us money for a down payment for a house, helped with private school tuition, and he did that. It's a large family, 30 plus grandchildren and well over 100 great grandchildren, and that
Wow.
Everybody experienced the same distribution that I did, and being the recipient of that, I said, you know what, I really want to help people with doing exactly that. So I set out with a mission to empower all people with wealth creation so that this and future generations can lead a better life. And I'm at the beginning of my journey where I'm helping people with growing their business, which is the ultimate cash producer, or at least it's supposed to be. And then eventually my brand will grow into helping people take that cash and then produce repeatable and growing wealth so that they can have the impact they want on the world. Now, how I ended up helping law firms is simply just the way that my practice took hold. Because I started my practice more recently, I realized I needed to do advisory services. I aligned myself with Mike Michalowicz and the Profit First program. I became a Profit First professional, and through their group was introduced to a law firm that was looking to implement Profit First. And through that engagement was referred to another and another and another. And I ended up, by the time I had 5 law firms as clients, I started to realize that these firms were getting coaching on how to grow their practice that was all on the sales side, the marketing side, the team development side, and everybody was ignoring the financial side of the business. So on the front end, they had a beautiful office and a big staff and looked really successful. On the back end, the owner was struggling from payroll to payroll, wondering how they're going to come up with the money to pay all their staff and to pay their rent. And that really was an eye opener to me, that there's a opportunity here to educate the market and help law firm owners with this journey
Mhm.
and stop ignoring the most important part of the business, the financial side. So I'm not an attorney, but I bring a different perspective to running a law firm, looking at it as a business endeavor and not as a practice. And that's how I got involved, and that's what I bring to the table.
It's interesting. I think we talked about this a little bit before, but it's very similar. Like we had a couple lawyer clients earlier on, like 10 plus years ago. So there are a couple law firms, and things went well, and they referred us to others and others. And within about a year, so we realized like this is a group that we can really help and impact. And I tell you, like we've been loving working within the legal industry and being involved in a lot of the changes over the last 10 years, being on the sidelines for some of that as a non-lawyer as well. So one of the conversations we had in San Diego that I really liked, because it's something that I talk about all the time. So the term that you used for what is marketer math is the question I ultimately want to ask here, but like use the term marketer math. And we went on about that for like 20, 30 minutes about how it drives us crazy. But so I'll let you kind of take it away, because you did a good job kind of like wrapping it up there. What is marketer math, and why should firms really be worried about this?
Yeah. So we're not going to, first of all, we're not going to talk to you for 20 or 30 minutes about marketer math. So don't shut this off, right? We're going to do this real quick. Marketer math is when a marketer tells you, hey, if you put a dollar in and can take $2 out, let's do that all day long. And essentially, what marketers completely ignore is the rest of the cost of running a business and the cost of growing with the growth that your marketing is producing. If you put a dollar in and take $2 out, you have a broken business model, because 50% markup is not going to cover all the costs required to continue to grow with those new clients that you're bringing on. Now, if you already have the capacity to handle those clients, yeah, the math works. But the second you have to expand your office or hire another staff member, the math doesn't work anymore. And what I like to do is to highlight that, because when you're approaching the marketing discussion, you need to have a much better handle on your entire financial picture, so that you can understand, first of all, what can you spend on marketing? And second of all, what kind of return do you need to produce from that marketing in order to stay in business? So we don't want to just spend money on marketing for the sake of spending money on marketing, but we want to actually have a defined result that we're trying to achieve and make sure we're hitting that metric. And if we're not, there's a problem. Now, obviously, it takes time sometimes, so you have to identify what that length of
Mm-hmm.
time is, but you need to know that math up front, so that if you're not hitting those numbers, you know that there's an issue and you need to perhaps tweak, change, or find a new method.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit too. Like it's the put a dollar in, get $2 out, or ROI calculations that only look at revenue, right? Like everybody has these ROI calculators. It's like, well, you pay this much money, and the case is worth this much. Look, that's 400% ROI on this lead funnel or whatever. And it drives me crazy, because there's staff, there's rent, there's all these things that cost money that go out the door that nobody considers in these ROI calculators. So we actually have initial consultations and with law firms, and we ask questions like, what's your capacity? Because you mentioned the capacity issue, right? So what's your
Absolutely.
capacity? What are your margins right now? What are your margin goals? Like how much is your average cases, right? So we get all this stuff so we can figure out like kind of what ROI they need. And sometimes we have to say, hey, you're going to have a gap here for a while, because that doesn't happen overnight, right? And like these are the
Exactly.
conversations I think most people just come up with an ROI calculator, wave some magic wands of their marketer math, and and that's where people I think get burned. So I'm glad to hear somebody on the financial side is saying something similar that we're saying on the marketing side. So,
Yeah,
but
and
you
and
mentioned,
that's
go
the
ahead.
and that's the crux of profit first, which we can talk about if you'd like. But the idea is that we, as a economical community, we identify by that top line revenue number. We talk about the market cap of companies. We talk about,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a law firm growth summit, so I had to tell sponsors who my target audience is. I didn't tell them firms that are producing $1 million in profitability. I told them firms that are 10 million in
Revenue,
revenue,
yeah.
up to firms that are 10 million in revenue, right? That's what people understand, and that's why there's this huge discrepancy in what you should do in practice versus what we're used to using in the descriptive form.
Got it. And I'll be honest, I'm a little insider baseball here because I have my copy of Profit First here, which Moshe was talking about, and great book, Michael Michalowicz. But you mentioned this, like business owners think about the top line. And I'm in a group called Entrepreneur Organization, which is, to get in, you have to have like $1 million in revenue minimum, right? But you could have somebody in there that's 50% margin and somebody that's 2% margin, and they're considered the same business, right? And that's where people get into these confusions. But we just had Michael Michalowicz in actually to talk about his Profit First. So why don't you take a little bit for our audience and talk about Profit First, because you are much more of an expert than I am.
Thank you. Yeah, and I understand from our conversation that you've implemented Profit First in your business as well. So you're also an expert. You just don't have a certification, but you're just as much of an expert as I am. Profit First, the idea is that it's built on human behavior, and human psychology is driven primarily by something called Parkinson's law, and that's not the disease. And Parkinson's law dictates that given a finite resource, our consumption of that resource is going to expand to use the entire resource. It's used a lot in time management, but a perfect example of Parkinson's law is brushing your teeth. When you go to brush your teeth, you take a tube of toothpaste and you lather on a nice big piece of toothpaste onto the toothbrush, right? And you keep doing that throughout the entire tube until you get to the end. And when you get to the end, you're eking out the last bit of toothpaste. Somehow you manage to get away with half a brush, quarter of a brush, but you're brushing your teeth with the same effect that you had with the full lather of toothpaste. That is Parkinson's law in practice. And what happens is that we really could make do with a lot less than we are making do, because we have the resource available. So our tendency is to spend it. That happens with the cash in our bank account as well. And if you run your firm with all of your cash in one place, then and you do what we call check balance accounting or bank balance accounting, where you log into your bank account in the morning, you look at the balance, and that's how you drive for throughout the day with your business decisions, right? So I log in the morning. Whoa, wow, we got paid this morning. I got $40,000 in the bank. What are we going to do? Let's buy some new computers. Let's think about hiring a staff member. Needless to say, you have $20,000 of checks you wrote that are going to clear your account. You have payroll coming up. So you can't run a business that way and expect to have something to show for it as the owner at the end. And it's human nature to operate that way. So what Profit First does is it says, let's not try to change human nature. Let's not try to change the behavior you're already doing, because who has tried to diet and then keep the weight off? We all know that if you're not changing the underlying way that you operate, it's doomed to fail. So instead of saying, hey, don't eat this unhealthy stuff, just eat smaller portions of it, you're much more likely to succeed. And that's what we do in Profit First, is we basically take the amount of money coming into the firm, create a few separate bank accounts, and divvy that money up. So the money comes into a revenue account. You then put away some money for tax. You put away some money for the owner's profit. You put away money for the owner to get paid their salary. And then you put away money for the operating expenses of the firm. And that operating expenses ends up being a much smaller piece of the pie. So when a firm is less than $250,000 in revenue, that's 30%. When they're going from $250,000 to 500,000, it goes up to 40%. So as the top line, the revenue number grows, the amount that we can allocate to operating expenses can increase, and all of that is covered in the book. You don't have to sit here and memorize it. But if you think about it, if you're running a $500,000 practice and you're spending more than 40% of your revenue that's coming in, which if you're not using Profit First, you most likely are doing that already today, then you have a broken business model. And what's going to end up happening?
Not paying yourself enough, because that's one of the things. You're not
paying your taxes
at the end of the year, or you're not having enough you have to pull out money out of your pocket to pay taxes, right? Those three things that if you don't think about it up front, like it was fascinating when like our Profit First consultant we worked with, like and to be fair, like we don't work together, we just have talked about Profit First a lot. But our Profit First consultant set things up where after a few months, I'm like, wow, there's an account here and it has the word profit on it and there's money in it. I don't remember the last time that happened. It's just like I got lucky at the end of the year, right? And we run a services business, so it's not that far other than I'm not as smart as all the lawyers out there, but it's still a service model. And so there's a lot of similarities. So I found that fascinating. But I want to make sure we talk about, because you mentioned earlier, the Law Firm Growth Summit.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so tell me about, like,
So
this is pretty cool.
yeah, so when I started to work in the legal industry, I recognized that there's a problem, and that problem is that law firm owners know that they need education. They know that they need to learn more about how to run a successful business. They want to do that,
Mhm.
but the only place that they go for education is conferences. That's
Traveling a
that's
lot
the
to
one.
conferences.
Right. That's the one place they go for education. And the conferences, first of all, the conferences are not geared strictly on the running a practice. There's always other things peppered in there. There's always other agendas with the conference, as far as, promoting a specific brand. Like the Clio conference is specifically to promote Clio, even though they have informational sessions. And they're also bringing headline speakers who are not very specific to the law
Mm-hmm.
firm business model. Right. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is there's an access issue, right? You need to fly there. You need to take time off of work to get there. You need to pay to get there. You need to pay for the admission. You need to lose that time that you would have been serving clients and bringing in money for your firm in order to attend those. And all of those barriers to entry are preventing law firm owners from getting the education that they need and that they want. So when I started to get to know some of the amazing leaders in the industry, the thought leaders, the people who are the front runners of new ideas and ways that we can increase the profitability of the firm and increase the productivity and increase and improve the life of the law firm owner. I mean, that's really what this is all about. It's about getting your time back, having money in the bank account, being able to spend time on the things that are important to you, whether it's family, whether it's a hobby, whether it's giving to others. There's a lot of things that people want to do other than running a law practice. Law practice is a means to an end. It's not the end, right? So I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
create a facility to be able to do that. So what we did is we decided to create a virtual conference. The conference is completely online. The barrier to entry is zilch. It's free. So the idea is that you don't have to pay, you don't have to travel, you don't have to earmark specifically work hours. Each session is being released and available for 24 hours. So if the best time for you to consume that is in the evening, then you can consume it in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to have it to consume 3 weeks later, that's fine. There's a small price to buy an all access pass, but the content is there for you to consume for free on the spot. And it's really exciting because we've now created it over 5 days, and separated into 5 tracks. So we have a marketing track, we have a sales track, we have a leadership and team development track. We have a technology and processes track and a financials track. So 6 speakers for each of these tracks, 30 speakers in total. And each of these speakers is coming to talk to you about a specific nuance, a specific idea, a specific thing that you can use to run with in the summit. And Mark is going to be one of our speakers there, and
Yeah, very,
GNGF
very
is
excited. Very excited. Yeah.
and GNGF is also a sponsor of the event. And they, the sponsors, so we've got some sponsors that are really excited about the event because they recognize the opportunity that this is for law firm owners who prior to this didn't have a place to go for this information and to get this education that they so desperately need. So my mission is to empower people with wealth creation. And this is my way of making that happen, of helping you do that.
Yeah, we were very excited about being involved in this because of that reason, right? There's a lot of people that I want to learn how to run my business better so I can be more profitable and have more at the end of the day, or spend more time coaching my son's basketball team or whatever, right? But in order to do that, let me spend $5,000 and 4 of my days of time and go travel across the country, right? So here's a way where I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. Why isn't this already happening? So when you had the idea, like, we were on board right away, and very thankful that you asked us to help speak and contribute there too. So we're very excited. But how can people find out about this?
It's very simple. Just go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com/GNGF. Lawfirmgrowthsummit.com/GNGF.
Awesome. And Joe, we can get that
register
in the messages, right? Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll put a link in here for everybody. So we're about out of time on our Facebook Live, but I wanted to talk about, you talked about how much real revenue should be allocated to marketing spend. And I wanted to know if somebody's not feeling profitable, what are some of the good first steps people can take? Can you stay with us and we'll release an extended interview on Friday?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. So hang on one second, Moshe. So we're out of time on our Facebook Live. So thanks for joining, and be sure to like and subscribe our page, not just our video, but like and subscribe the page so you can be notified when we have more of these great interviews. We're going to keep going here in the GNGF studios. So be sure to check out the extended interview on Friday. We'll drop that. And where Moshe's going to dive into some of these more specifics of, like how much percentage should you be spending on things like marketing, and if you are kind of struggling with some of the profit issues, what are some of the first steps you should be taking? So check that out on Friday. Thanks for sticking with us, Moshe. And we'll catch everybody later.
Hey, what's up? I'm Josh. Thanks so much for joining us. If you feel like you learned something today, think of how beneficial it would be to chat with myself or another one of our marketing consultants one-on-one. Go ahead and visit our website to schedule your free consultation. It only takes a minute.